Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Joe.
Oh boy, that's the bottom of the pot. Oh god, that was gross.
That was I didn't know what the first sound was.
That was me taking a breath and being like, "Oh my god, where'd I put my coffee?" I had another stroke. I was like, "Where did it go?" And I was like, "Oh," and it was hiding behind my water bottle. I'm like, "There you are." I'm like, "Did I just
Come to
blow it?
Papa.
Am I really gonna have to tell Joe? We need to restart it. I can't find my coffee.
Joe, we're more than 3 seconds in. We can't restart it.
There's no
Just
going
keep it in.
back."
No going back. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the comic edition of Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe for this week. This would be the episode, the week 15 is what I'm going to call it. Week 15. So today we have, if you saw the thumbnail, a actual legitimate trade paperback graphic novel, whatever it is you want to call it, a book of comic that we want to talk about. But we will save that for the end. We're just going to go through two books from the beginning or from last week that we thought we would like to talk about this week. So, Joe, let's start with our dear friend Bruce Wayne and see what he's doing in the year of 2027.
Dark Detective it's up there, man. Like this and Teen Titans are definitely the two books. These are the two books of Future State, and it's Joe. It's weird how big. Let me know if you agree. How big the gap is between the quality of stories in Future State? Would you say it's pretty big?
It is rather large. I don't know if it's weird. I mean, it might be weird. As someone who's been in comics just a few years longer than you,
Just a little.
uh, I mean, I've only been in since I think I got into them in like my junior year of high school, so I've got like five-ish, yeah, five-ish years on you. Um, I'm used to just stories in continuity and just in publishing lines in general being either like here are the godly ones that you're like these are the runs that you need to be reading right now, and then there's like good stories, and then there's everything else, and for the most part everything else is like mediocre to bad. Future State has a lot of that mediocre to bad stuff, and then there's like the two or three titles that are actually really really good. I would say, yeah, Dark Detective, Wonder Woman, Yara Floor, and no, I'd say those are the two like SS tier comics of Future State thus far.
Yeah, I'm really liking Dark Detective. It's this story. I like the story. It's interesting, and they're doing a good job of balancing of not just kind of throwing a bunch of shit at you, but also just giving you little tidbits, keeping you interested. And in this one, we get a little bit of backstory of this whole ooh, Bruce Wayne's supposed to be dead. And it's this whole thing, and it's Bruce doing a monologue, or it's just his thoughts, I guess. Um, that he kind of recounts how he was being chased down by Peacekeeper One, and he got shot. He fell into, I guess, a river, not a river,
Gotham Harbor or Gotham
harbor, a
River?
harbor. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be the proper
it
term.
depends on whoever's writing it at whatever
I think
time.
it's a harbor because a river has movement. This looks like it's kind of a still body of water. Um, but when he falls in there, he finds a body that looks kind of similar to him. He throws it up, and it's like, oh, they found Bruce Wayne's body, whatever. He died. Okay, interesting. It's one of those things where like you just have to go along with it. You're like, oh, convenient.
Yeah, that's my biggest gripe with or not gripe, but I just find it funny in this story that Peacekeeper One is made out to seem like this big antagonist, and you'd imagine a big antagonist to Batman would be fairly competent. Um, but like, did they not check the corpse after?
They
I don't
also
know.
made that. There's also a thing saying that like, oh, that they isn't it strange that nobody has the like a copy of Bruce Wayne's DNA or something like that. so they couldn't
Right,
DNA
yeah.
check it. But at the same time, I mean, based off like the drawing, it looks like the body's been in there for a while and it's decayed, and it's like I don't know. It's one of those things where you just have to go along with it, and I was willing to do it, but yeah, I'm like Joe's definitely gonna be like sloppy.
Let me say my piece. Yeah, exactly. But that's really like my only kind of gripe with this book. It's still like the art is second to none in
Amazing,
this book.
amazing. I think it's better for some reason. It's better than the first book. It got better.
Oh,
I don't even know.
I fully agree. I think it did get better. Did you catch the little anime reference that they put in there?
Well, Joe, I was going to talk about that for the second story, because that second story is literally just Akira.
Oh yes. Oh, you're talking about Red Hood.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that whole, yeah, I want to get to that after this first story, but the other thing I wanted to say about this first story is like there's nothing really too meaty to chew on here. You just get a little bit more world building and stuff like that, a little more background on where what Bruce Wayne's doing, his new roommate.
Yeah, he lives at some old guy's place. It's the only place in Gotham that doesn't have like a bioscan to get in or something. It's still just a lock with a key.
Yeah, and he's like this crazy paranoid dude about, oh, they're watching us, which I guess actually kind of fits this story with the whole magistrate thing.
Because they are.
Yeah, yeah, that's literally like the line that Bruce says, like, "Oh, they're everywhere, damn it!" And then Bruce, in his head, he's like, "Yes, they are."
You couldn't be more right.
But my favorite part of this whole story, Joe, that bike is fucking sick.
It's so clean. It's so goddamn
Oh
clean.
my god, because it's not a full-on like Harley chopper, and it's also
Nope.
not like a crotch rocket, like in Akira. Like you'll see in the second story. It's a good balance, and it really fits the Batman character.
100%. And also, like we said before, that Batman in his tactical gear looks like
Oh my
super hot.
god.
Looks incredible. Seeing Batman in the Dark Detective gear and then on the chopper or the motorcycle or the whatever you want to call it with a jacket that has the sleeves rolled up, I think I just found my favorite Batman design of all time. I mean, holy Christ.
Yeah, it looks hella badass, and I love it. I
It
thought it was awesome.
it looks it looks hella bat ass. Uh,
Yeah, baby.
and the episode and the
And stop recording. Stop recording.
hit the stop record button.
I just smacked the mic and goes flying.
Joe, I need a new microphone.
But but yes, this first story was very good. I honestly wanted to talk to you more about this second story because I'm like, oh my god, they put a chapter of Akira in this thing. Thank
Yeah,
goodness.
really. Yeah, so Dark Detective, it's continues to be good. If you liked it, you probably picked it up already. Next, Red Hood.
So the art style for this Red Hood story it's literally anime. It is the closest thing to being anime style without being anime. Or not anime, oh my goodness, manga style. Wow, I lost so much respect in the community.
It's fine. We'll edit it out.
That's a lie, and we don't know how to edit things out.
Yeah, we have no clue what we're doing. But this one's from what Red Hood is up to, and the design of Red Hood is sick. The bike is awesome. There is so much Akira influence, and also in the first like 2 pages, the guy that he's chasing definitely inspired from Racer X from Speed Racer. If you know anything about Speed Racer.
I saw the show from the CG show from like the 2000s on like Nicktoons, but I don't remember anything about it.
Okay, I have actually seen like the 80s show.
With like the
Most
monkey in the trunk or something.
Yeah, but not Bobo. Why am I forgetting his name? Oh my goodness. Oh goodness. Anyway,
Bebo,
no,
Bebop, and
no,
Rocksteady.
no, no. Just stop. Anyway,
The one where we beat Bop your boob.
best part of this story is Red Hood's bike. It's the Akira bike. They're like, how did they get away with that?
They're just like, yo, Gotham in 7 years, it's just Neo Tokyo. That's it. They're like, this is what it is.
Yeah, they went full Neo Tokyo to the point where now they're drawing manga. But hey, I'm not complaining. I actually really like it. I just thought it was funny. And this story kind of follows around what Red Hood's up to. And then it also includes Ravager or Rose, which is
Yeah. Rose
is it
Slade, Deathstroke's daughter.
yeah, and she's she's awesome. I really like her. She's pretty sick.
She's just some. It's kind of weird how she's portrayed in here because I just read her in the Deceased Unkillables book, like the zombie apocalypse book that DC was putting out a little while back. The second story, Dead Planet, just wrapped up literally this week. Or last, whatever. It wrapped up recently. And in that story, Jason Todd, Red Hood, and Rose also got together in that. And I was like, what? Why is they getting together now here? And she's written like, I don't know, like a well-rounded character in the deceased thing. And this, she's just some horny murder teen.
Yeah, yeah, and I thought of her more as like a funny character, and just kind of weird. Where I was like, it got me interested in her character. It's the best way to put it. Like I realized like, oh, okay, she's only here for a couple of pages or whatever. Will probably be in a second story, but the fact that she just, yeah, just her character, the fact that she just slices some dude in half nonchalantly, and how different her and Jason are, like, I don't know, I liked it. It got me interested, to say the least.
Yeah, it's interesting. Story's fine, in my humble opinion. But yeah, it's fine as a backup to the Dark Detective book. I wasn't like, this is awful. Why did they put this back here? It's bringing down Dark Detective. No, complaining. So it's Red Hood's also pretty good.
Better
Anything else?
than the Grifter story.
Better than the Grifter story. Yes, I will say that. Okay, so the Akira book done, out of the way. On to Batman Black and White.
Which I'm so happy you picked up.
Yeah, I told you that earlier this week, and I thought I had told you that I picked up the first one a couple weeks back, but I guess I hadn't. So I'm now up to date, got the first 2 issues of Black and White. So I'm in the loop now, everyone. Hooray! You can start your applause now. Thank you. Oh, Jesus. All right. All right, stop your applause, everyone else who's still applauding. Good. So, these are interesting. I like the art in the first couple, and then I don't have the book open in front of me directly, so I'm just trying to recall things from my brain. But from what I remember, it kind of just, it doesn't get worse or like bad, quote unquote. But the I thought it started off pretty good, and then kind of just the other stories were kind of like, okay.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, do you think this is better than the first issue?
I don't know. I think it is more consistent than the first issue, but there are some highs. Like, what's the story? The story that used the negative space with the blacks and the whites. Wow, that's very descriptive, Joe.
Oh, from
you
the
know
first
what I'm
one?
talking about.
Yeah,
From the first one. With the it was all the double page spreads,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like the blacks bleeding
That
into the
one's
whites
like
to make the
amazing.
images. Yeah, that was like godly. I loved that one. It was very good. This book, the first story, which is by Tom King and Mitch Gerrits, I'm pretty sure. It's the one where the priest is like trapped under the burning church. That was very good. I thought that was a really good short story for Batman. Very character driven. You see like why he's Batman, what his motivations are. Art is really good, and it's just very solid. It didn't quite reach the heights of like the more experimental story that from the first one, but I thought it was still really solid. Second one is the Catwoman one, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that one I liked a lot. I don't think there's no words. It's just
Nothing.
all yeah, it's just all art and it's really cool. Like what are your
I
takes
loved
on
it.
those first
Oh
two?
yeah, I loved it. The okay. Uh, oh my god. Yeah, I liked this one better than the first one. Um, I liked I liked the first one's cover more. This cover's pretty cool though, and it's by this guy named just
Jock.
Jock, which
Yeah.
is funny. I was like, who is it by? Um, but I liked the Tom King story. I thought it was like pretty old school. I'm like, all right, this is like a pretty like, you know, mature story or whatever. I just thought of it as old school. But the second story is my favorite. And I remember when we were looking at the first issue and they were showing the kind of previews for this one. I pointed out this one and being like, oh, that one's I'm the most interested in that one. It looks pretty cool because I love how heavy the ink is. Like there's not a lot of shadowing, um, and or shading, and yeah, I think it's Sophie Campbell. Oh my goodness, I love the story. I love the choice of no words, and yeah, I think it was really funny, really interesting. Yeah, I thought it was unique, and the ending was cool. Yeah, I really like the second one. That was my favorite one out of all the stories.
Yeah, I think that was probably my favorite one as well. The I guess Sophie Campbell, props to you. You very good visual storytelling. The way that she uses the because again, there's not a lot of shading. It's just blacks and whites. And are there any grays? I think it's just lines, right?
No grays. It's just heavy black and then just white.
Just pure white. And there's a scene where Catwoman switches from the black costume to the white costume, and when she's putting on the white costume, you see the white cat like stretching across the shadow into the light. And when the cat, because it's only blacks and whites, when it stretches, you see the front of it only through the couple of claws, and then like the I think the nose and like the eyes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good. It's very good. What are the next ones?
The third one was the Joker story, and I have mixed feelings about it.
Yeah.
Um, the art was interesting. Yeah, this one I was like, okay, give or take. I'm like, I don't really I didn't care about it. That was the main thing. It didn't do anything for me. It was kind of just there.
Yeah, it Joker is like, maybe I don't really need you or something, and then a dam breaks and they get washed away.
It's not. There's nothing really special about it.
Yeah. Eh.
I will say the one after that, the one with the white bat, that was pretty cool. And I wanted to ask, has the white bat ever have been brought up before?
I don't know if I'm being totally honest. I've never heard of the White Bat, and that story confused me a whole lot. The only thing that I can think of as analogous to it is in a Flash story. There was a time in the New 52 where Barry Allen from the future came back in time and was blue. Like his suit was blue and all energy based and stuff like that. And he was trying, I think he was trying to kill himself, like kill young Barry to do something timeline related. I can't remember. Um, but in that story, it was very much like Flash was fighting against someone he didn't quite know who they were yet. Like he knew they were a speedster, but he didn't know who. And it was revealed to him, and then he was just confused and was like, what's going on here? And that's kind of how I feel with this book, where it's like Batman is fighting against the White Bat, and he is just doing stuff in the night, and then the White Bat is also doing things, but getting crazier, and then he dies very quickly, and then Batman gets onto the ship, and then it's old Bruce. What?
I don't know. It was weird, but I found it interesting. It was one of those things where it almost felt like a pilot for a story. Um, where I would
Yeah.
if someone presented me with this, I'd be like, ooh, yeah, really. I'd be like, flesh this out, redo it, and I'm like, I like this idea of a white bat. Especially his design. When they fucking zoom in on his eyes, white on white, creepy as shit.
Yeah, I didn't care for the story at all. I just was confused and didn't like it.
The next one is like the newspaper style one.
Oh yeah, I didn't like this one either.
Yeah, I thought this was pretty. It was okay. Like I was like, oh, where's this going? And then it was kind of like, oh, it's like a secret society and they're doing a ritual, and it obviously it's insinuating that they're summoning some. The Freemost is what they called it, and in one of the earlier panels they say, oh yeah, what does he look like? Oh, he has these horns or something like that. He comes out at night, and obviously it's insinuating that it's Batman. And eventually when the last person is killed, Batman shows up. So, whatever.
Yeah, and it was I tried to keep track of the dates on the page just to see like if they actually meant anything, and it was just I guess to show passage of time because from what I could tell it didn't really amount to a whole lot. So, you know, first two really good. The other three, they're fine. You know, you can read them. Doesn't really matter. Anything else to say about Batman Black and White?
No.
Okay, then we shall move on to the meat and potatoes of today's episode. Joe, what is it that we read that is in the thumbnail that we already talked about at the beginning of this episode?
Spider-Man life story, and oh my god, I am so happy that I remembered that I never read this thing, because it was when I was packing my stuff up to move into the apartment and whatever. I was like, okay, I gotta bring some comics, you know. I gotta be able to like pull them out and reference them if we're having the podcast or whatever. And I realized that I had issue 1 of Life Story, and I'm like, damn, I really wish I read that. Like read the whole series. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, that came out like almost like 2 years ago. I'm like, let me see if a trade ever came out for that, and it did. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pick it up. And I told Joe. Joe got excited, and now we're here and we're talking about it. And wow, just wow. This is one of the best stories I've ever read. Simple as that.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, Spider-Man Life Story is it's just incredible. For those who don't know, it's by Chip Zdarsky, writer, and Mark Bagley, the artist, one of my favorite Spider-Man artists. He did the Mark Bagley worked with Brian Michael Bendis on the Ultimate Spider-Man run, and I think he drew. I'm gonna forget the number now, but it was like if not 100, close to 100 issues of Ultimate Spider-Man. Like he was the only artist on that book, or the main artist on that book, let me say, because there were inkers and colors and stuff like that. But yeah, so Mark Bagley is kind of like a Spider-Man veteran at this point. And you really see it in this book, the way that he draws all of the characters and the different designs. It's just incredible. And so it follows Peter Parker, but it ages real time. So it starts in 1962 when I believe the first issue of or his first appearance was in Amazing Fantasy. And then from there, each issue of the 6 issue series is a different decade. So 60s, 70s, 80s, and so on and so forth, like how decades work.
Thank you
So
for
yeah,
the quick education on decadeology.
thank you. It was my pleasure. You're welcome. So, did you have some things that you wished to speak about with this book, Joe? Because again, I'm at your beck and call.
I have a whole page of notes.
Let us speak of them.
This book is truly beautiful. Even just like having the physical book, it's so nice to hold. And even after finished reading it, I caught myself a couple times a week. I just open it up and just be looking at the pages because this art, it's that OG throwback art, where it feels like classic comic book art, and specifically for Spider-Man, but at the same time, it doesn't feel dated. It's really clean, really crisp, and it reminds me a lot of Spider-Man the animated series, where it's basically if you took that and threw it into a comic book, like that same style, and I'd love,
Yeah.
love that style. And this story really solidifies Spider-Man as my favorite superhero. Like I've always loved Spider-Man, um, but this story, it had all the things that are the reasons why I like Spider-Man. Just his character, the way he is, like the world that Spider-Man's in, all his supporting characters. Like it's not just him; it's just the story of Spider-Man I love, um, and this everything went right here, because it's a pretty cool idea, but at the same time, when I heard it, I'm like, oh, that could be really hit or miss. You know what I mean? Having like a
Very
70-year-old
true.
Spider-Man, like
Yeah, exactly.
if someone gave me that
I want my
idea.
Spider-Man with like arthritis swinging around going, "Ah, my bones!" as he's swinging from skyscraper to skyscraper.
But this thing does a good job of taking risk, and almost all, I would say all of them pay off. Whether it's some crazy story like plot twist, whether it's some weird character design, like all of it just worked out, and it almost, I would say it didn't. It all felt really plausible, and it felt really consistent. And that was my favorite part of this book, is that just sitting down and taking like an hour and a half to read this thing, it's great. I regret nothing. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is one of. I would say at this point, it is probably the quintessential Spider-Man book for people to read. That being said, you should have a bit of a backstory on some
Mm.
Spider-Man mythology
Mm-hmm.
just to really understand it all. Like, I'm like, if you've seen the movies, you're probably good. Like, if you've seen the entire Tobey Maguire trilogy, um, God bless patron saint Tobey Maguire. Um,
Number one Patreon subscriber for the Cup of Joe
exactly.
podcast. We haven't shouted him out in a while, but we're talking about his life's work right here. Tobey Maguire is actually the one who wrote this book, and he gives the credit to these two other guys, but it's really Toby. Toby's in everything we do, and Toby's the reason we're alive right now. So let's a moment of silence for Toby, please. Okay, that's enough. Let's get back to this.
I was going to start singing "In the Arms of an Angel" really quietly. Um, but yeah, getting back to
Toby
oh yeah,
Maguire.
it was Tobey Maguire. Um, but if you've seen his movies, you probably have enough of a base understanding of all the characters to know what's going on. If you've seen the Amazing Spider-Man movies, that'll help you because those ones have Gwen, and the Tom Holland reboots are fine. Actually, if you've only seen the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, you'll probably have no idea what's going on in these because these deal with a lot more of like what the Sony side of Spider-Man dealt with. Um, but that's fine because there's still like while this book touches on and remixes a lot of Spider-Man history and lore, there's still loads of it that it doesn't touch at all. Which of course, how could you touch it all when you only have six issues to do it? So I like what Zdarsky did with the different, what he actually cherry picked out of the Spider-Man mythology, where each issue really deals with like a big thing from Spider-Man's history, whereas like issue one deals with Green Goblin and that sort of thing, and then it also ties into the Vietnam War because it's the '60s, and Flash Thompson goes to the Vietnam War, which is similar to what he. I think he goes to different wars at different points in the comics. I believe at the latest or at the current time of this recording, he's been updated to have been a part of like the Iraq War, and that's when he became Agent Venom because like an IED blew off his legs, and so to go out into the field again, he got the Venom suit and it gave him legs again or something like that. But so it's cool to see, the real world stuff that was happening at those times, like in the '60s, and then the different things of Spider-Man mythology. So issue one, Vietnam War and Green Goblin, like that was the big beginning. Then issue two, it is Uh, who's the villain of issue
The
2? Is the Black
clones.
Goblin? Well,
Yeah.
the clones are the biggest thing. Yeah, the Clone Saga, the first one, because there's a second one in the 90s. But in the 70s, there was the original Clone Saga with Miles Warren. And so that's the big thing of issue 2. Issue 3 is. Oh, Secret Wars? Yeah, Secret Wars. And the Black Suit. So that's something going on there. His villain in that one is Craven. Issue 4 is the 90s. So what's the 90s? I'm trying to remember. I can hear you turning the pages trying to figure out what the 90s was.
I'm trying to make it obnoxiously loud. We gotta make the podcast as making it feel like you're a Joe reading a comic book.
Yeah, you gotta hear every single page being turned.
It's old Doc Ock and Tony.
Oh, that's right. Because old Doc Ock comes in and he's like, oh yeah, because old Doc Ock is like, aha, Ben Riley and Peter Parker. Oh, wait a minute. You're actually switched, and this one's the clone and this one's not. And you're like, oh my
I
god.
thought that was wild and I was freaking out. I was like, you gotta be joking. I'm like, that is insane. I'm like, they're really going all out with this whole like clone body, like identity thing. I'm like, I kind of like it. But then eventually you figure out that,
Yeah, Peter goes to Green Goblin, who's old and geriatric, and he's like, Norman, I know you switched the whatever is on the computer to make it look like I wasn't the clone, but I did my own testing. I'm a scientist. I know my shit. And then Green Goblin's just like, ah, clever boy. And then he has a heart attack and dies. We don't have time, Joe. We don't have time. Moving on to the 2000s.
yes.
Yeah, when the 2000s, and that is goddamn
Vlad.
fucking Morbius, the living vampire. Wait, is it Morbius or is it crap? It might just. I think it's Morbius.
It's Vlad.
I know it's the living. It's. They call him Vlad because it's a funny vampire name. His name isn't actually Vlad.
I call him Vlad.
Okay, then in your head canon, he's Vlad.
No, I think it's Morbius.
Yeah, it's because I'm pretty sure there are energy vampires and there are. I think Morbius is something else. I think he's. I don't remember. It's a vampire dude. It's something like that. And he kills Ben Riley, who's taken up the Spider-Man mantle while Peter is off being a dad. And might I say, I don't know what it is about characters getting older and growing grizzly beards, but I love those character designs. Old man Peter chopping wood in the wilderness with his kid. It's A+ from me, dog. But yeah, so he's dealing with Morbius, even though, or maybe it's not Morbius, I don't remember the fucking name of the character. And he goes to New York to try and deal with that. And he I remember reading this the first time and not really getting it, but he starts like a civil war, or he doesn't start civil war. There's like been an undertone of civil war stuff happening ever since the 60s. Like it started in Vietnam. Cap and Tony were on opposite sides of the Vietnam War stuff, and it's just been a through line throughout the entirety of the book. And so he goes to Tony and he's just like, hey, I'm not going to register. What you going to do about it? And they tussle for a bit, and then Captain America shows up and they tussle for a bit. And I never realized that Peter's plan was actually to like lure out vampire Vlad boy and have him be present with all the other superheroes so they could just kick his ass. But he actually went all the way across the country because he can like smell Spider-Man's powers or some crap. And he finds his kids and Mary Jane, and he's just like, aha, I'm gonna eat you all first and then go get Peter. But then they kill him. And then the final issue, where we have old geriatric Spider-Man, and he goes into space with Miles, but it's actually Dr. Octopus. They're doing Superior Spider-Man. And then you find one of my favorite scenes where Venom is on like this in this space shuttle because Peter and Miles go up to space to do something, to like they're gonna blow something up, and you find Venom, and Venom is, instead of being whoever he is normally, is Craven, I can't remember character names for shit. I'm terrible at this. And you see Venom Craven, and you're like, oh my god, that's so cool. And then they blast him apart, and it's just a skeleton inside of the Venom symbiote, and you're like, oh, he's dead. That makes sense. And then Peter dies, saving the world or something by blowing up the ship thing. And then Miles gets his body back, and then Mary Jane gives him the original Spider-Man suit, and you're like, aw, he's carrying on the legacy. And then the book ends with Peter having a dream, doing the only thing he ever wanted to do, which was saving Uncle Ben by stopping that mugger. And you're like, holy shit, this book is a fucking masterpiece.
It's so damn emotional. It's heartfelt and it's honest.
It really is, because this book, it pulls no punches with the emotional stuff. Like, Spider-Man's life, Peter Parker's life gets destroyed a lot in this book. He has to deal with a lot in this book.
Big time. Yeah, I thought I think it's like the middle story. It might be the 90s when he first gets the Venom suit, and he's kind of like Mary Jane doesn't even know if he's gonna show up anymore. Like she's like, I don't even know what to expect anymore from him. That story, you could really tell how much he was struggling just with his life.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is just because he's Peter, and that's just the way he kind of always is. But the other part of it is because, Mary Jane's pregnant with twins, and then he's whisked away by some magical douche nozzle to an alien world where they do gladiator battles for the next 4 weeks, or I don't know how long. It was a while. Oh, it's months, isn't it? Because he comes back and his kids are born. And in the beginning, Mary Jane had already said it's been 3 weeks and Peter's still missing. I'm just happy that she's not like, you've been gone for so long and I blame you. And Peter's like, oh my god. And then all the readers will also be like, oh my god, it's not his fault.
Yeah, MJ and Gwen are both pretty cool characters in this.
Yeah. It does kind of suck that Gwen, because what you find out in the second one, it's like, she's a clone and the original one actually died. And you're like, oh my god, that's the death of Gwen Stacy. And you're just sort of like, is at the end of the issue, Gwen Clone. There we go. I fixed it, Joe. I had a stroke, but I Control Z'd my stroke.
We should put that through clinical trials. That might be helpful to some people.
With the growing digital market, it just may.
Okay. I'll make a note.
I'll put that on a sticky note. Yeah, I'll put it on a sticky note. This goddamn telomeres connecting our brains. Scientifically accurate 100% of the time. Gwen Clone goes off with the Peter clone, who's Ben Reilly, even though we don't know how long real Peter and Gwen Clone have been living together, because Gwen Clone thought she was real Gwen for the entire time because she has all the memories. And ethically, if Peter got married to Gwen Clone and they've been living their marriage together, then it's really fine that he's living with Gwen Clone, because that's she's her own person now as Gwen Clone.
It's fine, but at the same time, if you're Peter, you're probably creeped out and you just kind of want a fresh start.
I guess, yeah, but it just nobody's perfect, obviously, and Peter is very much not perfect and recedes into himself a lot whenever things go wrong, especially in that story. And it's only with the help of Mary Jane that he actually is able to come out of it, I think, which is cool, because then you're like, wow, MJ isn't just, a drunken party girl. She's actually a character, like when she did a similar thing in the past, I'm sure. I don't remember the story, but I know it happened.
Yeah, I give this book a classic out of 10.
Yes, 100%. I would definitely say when I read the first issue, and I gave you the first issue to read 2 years ago, I was like, Joe, I think this might be something really special. And I can confirm it was a classic in the making, and it is a classic right now. So, is good. That's my rating. Is very good.
And Joe, this week there's not too many comics coming out, but I'm having an internal struggle.
What's that?
Do I get this next Batman book?
The next Batman issue 3. It's a good question.
It's $8.
Yeah, that's. It might be fun to riff on it, but also
But
I'm not gonna buy it.
$8, I could
I
get
know.
so much Wawa.
You could get so much wobble with that $8. So I'm gonna give you my advice and say don't bother getting it. And you know what we'll do next week? We'll just pretend. We'll try and guess.
We'll listen to
What
somebody else's
happens?
podcast.
No,
on
no,
it. No, we're just
no.
gonna
We
guess
do
what happened.
nothing. We're gonna guess what happens, and then we'll check back in the week after and see how right we are by watching someone else's review of it.
Okay, but we are going to get the Wonder Woman book, the
Yes.
Yara book.
The Return of Yara Flor, the savior of DC Future State.
That one's a definite. And those are the only two I had. But is there anything else you're gonna get?
Oh, but I don't have the list out in front of me. I don't think there was a whole lot this week. It's a slow week for comics, so we might end up talking about another like past series that we have. I know we've both read Three Jokers, so if we ended up talking about that,
Oh
it's
my.
a little too late for the clickbait. But you know,
Damn.
who cares?
That would be interesting.
Yeah, it might be cool if we did something like that. Like the later weeks, we just go back and we're like, oh, let's just talk about this story. I like that idea.
Let's go.
Um,
It's a back issue episode.
Exactly, but we're not taking that name because Comic Pop does that, and I'm also big fans of them.
Damn it.
It's okay. We'll workshop it. But yeah, so I believe that should be everything. Do you have anything else to add?
No, I'm just super happy I own this thing now. It would have been
You can put it
different.
up on the wall.
Like it would have been different if I had, I thought about maybe asking you, oh, can you lend me the books or something? I'm like, you know what? It's 20
Absolutely
bucks.
not.
Yeah,
Absolutely
I know you
not.
wouldn't.
I have the original first printing issues of each of them. They are never going back out of their bags.
Yeah, I had a feeling. But this thing, if you're a Spider-Man fan, even if you don't read comic books, this is a cool gift for someone who likes Spider-Man.
Very much so, because it is just classic Spider-Man. The art alone is worth the price of admission. The story alone is worth the price of admission. You put them together, you get Spider-Man life story. I was gonna just leave it quiet, but that'd be really awkward.
I was just assuming you were doing the math in your head, and it was just kind of taking you a while. I didn't want to embarrass you.
Thank you for thinking so highly of my math skills.
Oh, you're welcome.
Alrighty. So again, thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to subscribe, leave a like, maybe leave a comment if you want to. And that shall be it from me. I love you all. Goodbye.